I'm coming of the opinion now that there are no longer any tech companies. Right? That's done. Every company is a tech company that sells something. If you don't view yourself as a tech company selling something, I think you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Vineet Khosla. Vineet is the Chief Technology Officer of the Washington Post. In that role, he serves as a senior advisor to the Chief Executive Officer of the company and leads the Post engineering team and innovation strategy, helping to drive the company's overall vision for its technology goals. He's leading a remarkable transformation, and I look forward to hearing more about the substance of the changes that are afoot. Prior to his current role, Vineet was a senior engineering leader at Uber and at Apple. Vineet, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Vineet, maybe you could take a quick moment here at the top to provide a bit of context as to the Washington Post business. I think most people who are listening or watching this would have some familiarity with the Post. But in your own words, talk about the business you're in, please.
One way to describe Washington Post is this is one of the most important news organizations in the country. I believe it is one of the most important news organizations of our time. It has been a reason of change. It has caused change in this company. It has educated and highlighted problems, and it has, stood up to the power at all times. So this is a company with a great legacy. It has existed for, I think, 150 or something in that zone. But much like most news organizations in the world right now, we are going through a period of change and turmoil.
Yeah, very interesting. And with the Washington Post covering all of the above to a great extent. Talk a bit about your role as Chief Technology Officer, if you would. No two CTO roles are quite alike. What is the constitution of your role, Vinny?
I lead all of tech and product at Washington Post. This includes all of the engineering, all of the software we write. It includes all of the IT. It includes all of the product. What does our app look like? What is our website? How do we put it out? What's our subscriptions? So think of it this way: from the moment somebody has an idea to start writing a news story, start writing an article, that's where my team gets involved. We have our own CMS, content management system. We aid our journalists in crafting these beautiful stories. And from that point onwards, you can take it to the time it's published to the web, time it's published to the app, all the algorithms that are in the play in the middle, algorithms deciding when does Vineet want to see it, what type of push notifications. And finally, what I call ourselves crown jewel, the print, and all the stories, some of them will end in print. So that whole life cycle of a story, when it's a germ of an idea, to the point where we put it in print, my team is involved in all aspects of it.
And it's interesting, to borrow a phrase from retail, you have sort of an omnichannel approach here. And I wonder how you think about that, the experience of, I myself as a subscriber, both to the print, to the app and to the web. So I certainly have some experience across all of these, but how do you think about unifying that experience or the differences across those, depending upon how a reader wishes to consume the journalism within the Washington Post?
First, I would say thank you for being a digital and a print subscriber both. I think these are different audiences. And when I say different audience, I don't mean that it has to be physically different people. You meet your audience where they are. Even for the same person, I can start off my morning reading the print newspaper because that is actually very relaxing. I do that usually on weekends. It's my therapy, by the way. No distractions, no chat messages. I just open my Washington Post and I pick my few favorite sections before my son wakes up, and I go through that with my coffee. Now, on a weekday, I would probably start off with an app. And when you start off with an app, you might not have the time to read it all. So usually what I do is we just implemented voices. We implemented a new voice that reads out a story to you and it auto plays. So I'm, making coffee, getting in my car, commuting to work. I hit that play button and I just read a bunch of stories that it offers up to me. So I'm not even making an active choice. Then, sometime during the day or evening, I'm more intentional. I'm more intentional about what I want to read. Maybe I've heard about something on a different news channel, or I've seen in Twitter, and I'm like, I want to go back and dive deeper into the topic. So this is how we view our consumer journey. That our consumer have different needs during different times of the day, and our goal is to meet them.
And you highlight an advantage that you, and of course, by extension, your team have in the business that you're in, Vineet, and as much as you are a consumer of the product that you put out. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the advantages of that you actually embody, not all, of course, as you note, this can be personalized depending upon the differences between how you like to consume it versus how I like to consume it and how everyone else does. But talk a bit about the advantages of being able to be a customer of the Post in addition to being a leader of the organization.
Well, I think it's one of the joys and maybe unfair advantages we have, right? Sometimes when you're in a business where you're creating work that you don't consume every day, a lot of B2B, what we call business to business, is like that. I have always been in the consumer space, even when I worked with Apple and Siri, then Uber. Now you really get to layer in your experience as a consumer, but you also really get to enjoy the hard work that the team puts out. So for me, I think this is a critical part of why you need a big diverse team. You want to, what we experience on a daily basis will make it into our product. The needs we have, the desires we have, and having a really interesting and diverse team ensures that we are actually building for everyone. The job of news is it's kind of like really, really broad, right? Like you kind of have to meet the need of everybody in America, in every age group, in all genders, in all religions. Like it's a pretty big mandate. So it helps to be an avid consumer of it.
It makes a lot of sense. Talk a bit about it. You mentioned a moment ago, as I did in the introduction, that your prior roles were at Uber and at Apple. What drew you to the Post? You talked about, of course, one of the most important news organizations in the country, and that alone makes it a compelling place to be, no doubt. But as you thought about where you were and where you wanted to go, what were some of the factors that led you to want to make a change?
Yeah, it wasn't a linear process. I was actually looking to take some time off, and then they asked very nicely. So that was step number one. They asked very nicely, "Would you like to come and talk to us?" No, I'm kidding. They asked nicely. I'm not kidding about that part. They asked nicely, but my
It helps, though.
motivation, it really helps, right? And my motivation was more about the impact that not only this institution has, but the impact journalism has to the health and democracy of America, right? And the health of our nation, the health of any nation, right? Like if you could draw a curve from how free press is and how free and independent a nation is, I'm sure that's a curve that follows it directly, right? So that was one of the motivations, was I want to be part of something that's impactful. Being an Apple was very impactful. Something you do impacts, billions of lives, and same thing with Uber. And I think the mission of the Post, the mission of journalism in general, is at par where you get inspired to come in every day. It's really not a job. So that was one thing that drew me to the Post, right? And it's an honor to lead any team here, like period. Like I think all of the people, when I come here and I meet, and that was the second part, is like once I interviewed and I met people who are working here, this is a different place. Nobody's here for just a job, right? Everybody's here for a mission. So that really helped me align my motivations with these people's motivation. And I said, I can see myself being here. I can see myself wanting to be a part of this change. And the tech team here is really good, right? Like there is no surprise. There is we're owned by Jeff Bezos, and he has done a few things in tech, which are revolutionary. So some of his ethos flows in here. So I was really impressed by the tech team over here, what they have put out, how they view problem space. So all of these came together as a package, and it inspired me to move to DC and take this role.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Talk a bit about, if you would, the role that Jeff Bezos plays. It's sometimes misreported that it is owned by Amazon. No, it's owned by Bezos personally. But talk a bit about the role that he plays and interactions that you and others have with him from a tech perspective.
This one's probably might not be as detailed as you want, Peter, but I can say on the overall, Jeff is very curious. That's the best thing about Jeff is like when you interact with him, he's very curious and he wants to learn more. And it is his curiosity, his questions that shape and drive. It's never a mandate. There is never like, do this, don't do that. And that's the quality that I really admire about him. And it shapes the tech in a silent, invisible way.
You talked a bit about the role that digital plays, the fact that you lead product, and so with dual responsibilities of technology and product, you personify the extent to which those are woven together. Can you talk a bit further about the collaboration that you started to allude to in terms of the people who are writing stories, who are offering opinions, who are building the reporting, and the role that your team plays in getting that out into the world? I know long before you arrived, those were parallel tracks in some cases and not necessarily thought about in a fully integrated form. Can you talk a bit about the way in which that interaction and integration happens?
Yeah, so I think if you compare it with a traditional tech company, and I say traditional because this is a traditional company. So in tech companies, engineering and product, like it's, no question asked, like it's one role. But over here, product is layered. There is a layer going on. We have the stories. That's the product. Like what type of stories are we going to write? What type of journalism we follow? How do we present them? What audience we present to them? So product over here is definitely what I consider more collaborative, right? Because we have the daily product that goes out, and then we have the big product, like the subscription product that people stay with us for years and years. And together as one team, we own the product. Now, to the tech audience, this would be interesting, but worth pointing out, we just hired a new head of product, and that head of product dual reports into me as the CTO and Sally Busby, who's the editor, right? Because this is how we make sure that we are always marching to the same end goal. And we are constantly thinking about the daily product as well as the big product. Going back to your question of, right, like how does digital play in this company? I'm coming of the opinion now that there are no longer any tech companies. Right? That's done. Every company is a tech company that sells something. If you don't view yourself as a tech company selling something, I think you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. You can view, for example, Uber as a tech company or Uber as a tech company that sells rides and food share, right? Similarly, I like us to view ourselves as a tech company who sells the most important thing, that is unbiased news, right? Those are our customers. So we are adopting that mindset, right? What does it mean in practice is we really lead with data and analytics. We lead with the product mindset. We think about our reader. I don't know what's the right way to use it, because traditionally we say readers, but now it's readers, listeners, watchers. When you say consumers, it kind of feels weird because, news is that in the higher strata of thing where you don't want to think about people who are receiving the news as consumers. So I don't know what the right word here is, but now I use reader, watcher, listener. We think about them, we think about the journey they're on, we think about how do we best get our news to them. And we just adopt from a digital mindset, which means we build a lot of things in the house, right? As a CTO, part of my day-to-day work is decide what do we build, what do we buy, and what are the areas we choose to invest in. So we start doing all of those decisions like a tech company now.
Yeah, very interesting. And you talk also about leading with data and analytics. Can maybe peel back that onion a little bit further about the way in which you do so? We talked about some of the fruit of that, certainly with greater degrees of personalization and helping define customer journeys and having that impact the way in which you were developing, your product. Talk a bit about how else you think about the use of data and analytics to optimize the company as well as to optimize the experience for readers, listeners, and watchers.
And we've used data and analytics for a long time in this company when you think about the business aspect of it, right? Subscriptions. How much do we charge? When do we charge? When do we offer subscriptions to? All of those things have been data and analytics driven. Now, we are now trying to bring more data and analytics into the earlier part of the journey, right? Like before a story is monetized, how are our reporters, what are the type of help they need to make better news stories? So we are trying to use more data and analytics, not just on the reader, watcher, listener side, but we are also trying to bring a little bit of this insight to our newsroom because our journalists want to know. They want to know what are the important things in the world, how did their stories do, what type of audience it attracted, right? And this is once again a way to help inform them so they can decide which type of work they want to do in the future, obviously in conjunction with the whole editorial team and opinion teams. It's their decision. So we try and surface up as much data as possible and then also thin that data down so it's not just analysis paralysis, but what are the meaningful questions they want answered? And we work with them to answer those.
And talk a bit about, by extension, the use of artificial intelligence and the role that it's playing as you think about all the above.
AI is a success, 50 years in the making. But finally, AI is, I think, at a point where it's going to be used everywhere, right? It's not just a niche thing that some people do. So when I said earlier, they are no longer tech companies, but every company is a tech company selling X. I think we need to start viewing AI in the same light. It is unimaginable for anyone to think about a company that doesn't have a digital presence, that doesn't have websites and apps and, a bunch of other things. And I think in a few years from now, it will be unimaginable to think of a company that does not have an AI presence. So we are bringing AI at the ground floor in this company. We are building it as a foundation on top of which we are going to build a lot of products. And when I say as a foundation, I really mean it as a foundation because it's not just what the reader, watcher, listener group does. So it's not just about how do I use AI to enhance their experience, which we have done a bunch, but it's also bringing AI down to the newsroom, right? And we had the wisdom years before me to build our own CMS, our own content management system, which all our journalists use. So now we have started building a newsroom CMS Copilot. We look at the tasks that the journalists have to do in a digital environment that they are, which is frankly not the best use of their time, right? So we are bringing AI, we are fine-tuning our own LLM. We are creating something that is very specific to the news use cases and also is fine-tuned, right? Maybe I can jump into a quick example over here. Every now and then you have to write a summary for an article to put it in search results, for example, right? But this is not a summary that you should write like a school report. You don't want to just state facts. You want it to be interesting because your article is interesting, right? And we are seeing evidence that a lot of young consumers especially are looking at AI summaries as a way to judge whether they should read more of this article or not. So we want to fine-tune a machine learning model, our own LLM, that can be specific to that task. We got SEO, right? Search engine optimization. You have to sometimes create headlines and topics for it and be cognizant. These are the type of things that we think the AI can just do in the background for a journalist, enhance their productivity, and let them focus on the core thing they do, right? And if we view our journalist they do something really interesting. They take, just like bunch of AI, they take terabytes of data and they turn it into 800 words of knowledge that they write. That's a special skill. So we want them to focus on those skills, and we're bringing AI there. We are bringing AI in our apps, in our website. And we're not going to actually just stop at that. We are bringing AI functionality into our finance team, into our HR team, our legal team. We are injecting AI in all aspects of this company, and we want to be an AI first company.
Very compelling. Talk a bit about the role that you and your team play in educating the rest of the organization, especially as expansive as the vision of an AI first company is, as to what AI is, how it can help, what it isn't. How do you think about the role that you and your team offer as consultants, for lack of better, or advisors to the rest of the organization on these topics?
Well, that's a really interesting question because I think traditionally with newsrooms, you would expect that you have to educate them. But newsrooms are really intelligent. Like, this is what they do. They pick up a topic, they research it for a few days and weeks, and they write a really compelling story about it. So we are blessed to have colleagues that are in this line. And we have done a lot of work over here. We did a lot of hackathons, which were joint with engineering and newsroom and tech and product. We built a lot of prototypes over the last year. By my count, I think the team built over 20 plus prototypes. And we let people's imagination go loose, right? We have Phoebe Connolly, who's the head of AI at Newsroom. So she works with my team, like it's one team. And we figure out what the important use cases are for the newsroom, which are the things that are possible to be built now, help us plan for the future. So what you would find inside this building and in Zoom, because we are in both places, a very inquisitive, curious group of people. They are obviously fierce. Everybody's afraid of the unknown, but more people who are willing to experiment and actually very hungry to experiment, right? Once people start using generative AI in their use cases in their daily life, they see the value of it. So frankly, it's not work. It's just normal everyday life for us. It's like, hey, do you think we should do this? And you take opinion and then you go work on it.
And can you just share a little bit more about your own perspective of the collaboration between AI and the journalists? It's such an interesting topic, as that there's been a lot of pontification as to the degree to which AI will certainly change, if not take over certain roles. But I know from our past conversations, you have great deference for good reason for the human element, as you've already conveyed here as well, that humans are taking the terabytes of data they have in themselves and building a fantastic product as a result of that. Talk a bit about how you feel about that interaction and collaboration between artificial intelligence and talent.
I think our industry is no different than how most industries in the world will be impacted by Gen AI, right? People will use it to offload work that they don't desire, right? I actually want to step back and say one thing. I'm by training an engineer, right? So I love to solve problems. That is also a problem because sometimes my wife says I'm hungry and I'm like, you should eat a snack. That's not the problem to solve, but I can't help myself. When I look at Washington Post, what are the problems we have to solve? Writing quality journalism. That is not a problem that needs solving here. We have that one pretty packed down. It's everything around it, how it starts, how it gets created. Does it need to go, translated in a different language? Do you need somebody to speak it? Can we use a machine generated voice to talk about it? Can you create like some socials to put it on TikTok? Well, when do you send it out to people? How do people know about it? Those are the problems. And therefore, the focus for me and my team and like for Washington Post is solving those set of problems. I don't see a need to go down to that path of like, AI will start writing content, And I find that honestly, people talk about with generative AI where you can do videos and music and text and everything, and people are like, well, I will create the ideal Star Wars movie I want with the ideal script I want, right? And it's all possible now that I can just kind of shoot and direct it on my own. And my answer to that is like, but then why would I watch it if I know everything about it? Right? I am interested in knowing what other high quality, intelligent individuals, Washington Post, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, right? BBC. I want to know what those people think about something, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, very, very interesting. That's really well articulated. Are there any other trends as you look to the future beyond the ones that we've delved into through this conversation that particularly excite you as you think about a multi-year outlook, Vineet?
Yeah, there are two trends. I think there are a few trends within the news world and in the media world that I'm excited about. And there are some things outside that of tech, in other areas of tech, I'm super excited about. In our world of news and media, I really like the fact that big tech, which is Twitter and Facebook and those guys, are not pushing news anymore. Now, you would say, like, wait, that's a problem. This is the decline. People don't care about news. No, I think this is an opportunity for us to present the news the way we wanted it. When you have a platform in the middle, we do not get to control the virality of it or what people are saying about it. We have no insight. So forget about control. We don't have insights. There is somebody else in the middle who has a different agenda compared to you, right? So that's a problem. And I'm really excited that there is a chance for genuine news and journalistic organizations who have always believed in that honesty and integrity of our work. We have a chance to rebuild that relationship with our audience. So that's one thing I'm very excited about. Now, outside of that in tech, I'm really excited about quantum computing, right? I think the way we talk about AI now, where we go like, oh my God, what happened overnight? Suddenly AI is everywhere, but they don't realize it was like started in the 70s, right? Like really the research on it. I think 20, 30 years from now, we will be talking the same about quantum computing.
Very, very interesting. I wanted to close, Vineet, by asking you, as you reflect on your journey as a technology executive, what have been some of the difference makers along the way that have helped propel you forward to the heights you've reached now as the Chief Technology Officer of the Washington Post?
Quite a few things, right? Like, and I think the first thing I would say is I'm incredibly lucky. A lot of people do a lot of right things in life. I'm just incredibly lucky that I have a family. I have a 6-year-old son who is young enough that he still thinks I'm funny. I have a wife who has been with me long enough and supported me long enough. She knows I'm not funny, but she doesn't let that stand in the way. And through my life, I have found really good mentors. Right. So if you would say, if this is success, and I agree this is success, I'm lucky because I had people supporting me all the way and people who built great relationships.
Oh, a very nice reflection indeed. Vineet, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a great conversation, hearing more about the transformation that you and your team are leading, some of the very exciting things that are afoot at the Washington Post as well. Again, as a reader, I'm looking forward to continuing to see the fruit of your team's labor. Thank you so much for making time with me today.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Always a pleasure to talk to you.